Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today. Comedian Dave Chappelle was attacked on stage last night as he was doing a set for a comedy special he was doing for Netflix at the Hollywood Bowl. Now, in this incident, a 22-year-old man decided to storm up on the stage towards the end of Dave Chappelle's set and decided to tackle Dave Chappelle. And as this was going on, thankfully, security was able to get a hold of him along with Chris Rock and Jamie Foxx, and they were able to get him off the stage. And thankfully, they did get him off the stage because this individual was carrying a weapon that was looking like a gun but had a spring-loaded projectile that was a knife. And this could have possibly led to Dave Chappelle possibly winding up being harmed and losing his life. Now, the police are seeing this whole incident with Dave Chappelle as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of what happened to Dave Chappelle, it is fitting right in line with the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And it fits a disturbing trend as related to comedians because it seems like there's somebody always looking to go out here and attack a comedian for expressing a difference of opinion or making fun of a situation. Now, many people think that it started with Will Smith at the Oscars. However, this has been a trend going on for some time because I was live streaming with Gboot2786 and he showed me several incidents of comedians who had individuals coming up on stage in the middle of their sets. And these people coming up on the stage in the middle of a comedian's set is something definitely connected to the man crisis in this country because it just shows how many of these beta males have not been raised well, and many of these beta males do not understand concepts like boundaries and concepts like having critical thinking skills and concepts like discipline, because any adult man who goes out here knows that they have to have thick skin when they go out into the real world. And because they have thick skin, they know that if they go into a place like a comedy club, you definitely are going to hear things that you don't really like hearing, and you basically have to roll it off of you and just keep moving on. If the whole thing is with today's beta males is that many of these males are more fragile than an egg, and their skin is softer than tissue paper. And because their skin is softer than tissue paper, all somebody has to do is make some sort of joke, and these people, they just go out here and explode in rage, act on their impulses, and then want to go up and jump up on stage and attack a comedian, all for doing their job. When the problem was, the parents didn't do their job as related to raising these males and some of these females, and because those parents didn't do a job of teaching them at 4 and 5 years old that if somebody says something you don't like, then you don't take it personally. You just let it roll off you and you just move on. They weren't taught that lesson at 4 and 5 years old, and many of these fragile tissue paper skinned people, whenever they hear something they don't like, they start to get upset, and when they get upset, what they do is they get so angry they believe that they can go out here and attack an individual to silence them, when it is not anybody's right to go up on a stage and try to silence a comedian for making a joke. No, in the United States of America, where we all have freedom of speech, it is not the right of one individual to go up on stage and then try to silence someone for saying something they don't like. Because the First Amendment guarantees us freedom of speech, and it guarantees freedom of speech not for the speech we like, but for the speech we don't like. And the whole thing with comedy is that comedy is a measure of the freedom of a society, because if we can't laugh about things we don't like, then we don't really have the freedom to express ourselves like we do like. And what I'm seeing with today's America is that we have a group of people who have tissue paper skin, and these people with the tissue paper skin can't really take any sort of criticism, can't take any sort of commentary, and anything that upsets them gets them so emotional. They believe they have a right to act on their impulses, and they believe they have a right to do harm to others. And that's not the way a functional society works. No, functional people understand that if a comedian is making a joke that they disagree with, they know that they can just get up out of the seat that they paid for, and they can leave that comedy club or that venue and say that I didn't like the show, so I'm just going to leave the show. Unfortunately, due to the dysfunctional way many of these beta males and some of these females have been raised over the last, I say, 30 to 40 years, many of these beta males and females, whenever they hear information they don't like, they go into a rage, act impulsively, and believe that they are justified to go out here and do things like jump up on a stage and assault a comedian for doing their job. Now, as a comedy writer, I was deeply disturbed by this recent attack on Dave Chappelle and this trend of attacking comedians, because when you go out here again and are attacking comedians, it is showing us a measure as related to freedom of speech in our society and how intolerant people are becoming in American society. Now, some people would want to come out here and blame the orange man for this intolerance, but this intolerance has been growing in the culture ever since the era of what people called SJW Marvel and this trend of the social justice warrior. Now, the social justice warrior, they believe that they are justified in going out here and attacking individuals for making commentary and criticism regarding different forms of the culture. And this is what has led to what many have called the culture wars. These social justice warriors believing that they have every right to go out here and do harm to others for expressing opinions they don't like. These individuals will go out here and talk about cis white males, talk about other sorts of statements, and go out here and attack individuals, all for expressing their opinions and their viewpoints. And they believe that they are justified in doing this because it's okay for them to go out here and attack people, but it's not right for anyone to come out and criticize them. That is just shows you how dysfunctional these people have been raised. They believe it's okay to go out here and do harm to others for expressing their opinions and their viewpoints, or just making fun of things like people do at comedy clubs. Many of these people, well, the irony is that they all talk about tolerance and diversity, but whenever somebody expresses an opinion they don't like, these people become extremely intolerant, and they look to show. The irony is that they show sometimes how racist they are, or in some cases they show how completely out of control they can become whenever they hear or see things that they don't like. And that is one of the most troubling things about this so-called group of people. Many of them, they want to go out here and try to force their opinion to be the only opinion, and they believe in the whole concept of monolithic thought. But you can't have monolithic thought in a nation where people have free speech, and you cannot have monolithic thought as related to human beings, because God made everybody with their own mind, and he gave everybody free will. But these people don't want people to have free will. They don't want to see people expressing themselves like Dave Chappelle, and they don't want to see anybody being happy. No, most of these people are miserable, and they look for ways to make other people miserable because they want everybody to think like them, and they know that they cannot make everybody think like them. So they go out here when they hear somebody thinking differently than they are or expressing themselves and having a good time. This is when these type of people get upset and want to go out here and hurt people. But when I look at this whole situation, again, it's really fitting right in line with that pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in the Man Crisis, because the beta male, he wants to have a smooth world, and he does not want to deal with any conflicts, problems, or obstacles. And the greatest conflict for him is somebody expressing themselves and having a difference of opinion, and somebody going out here and having a good time while expressing themselves and having a difference of opinion. Your beta males really don't like comedians, because a comedian is somebody who goes out here and makes fun of things. They can get a laugh and get attention, and they really don't like hearing from comedians, because comedians, they oftentimes make the world rough for everybody as they're making their jokes. Now, again, as a comedy writer, I understand that, you have to have a thick skin in this business, and thankfully Dave Chappelle had a really thick skin. After being attacked, he went back to his set and he went back to making jokes and showing everybody that he would not be fazed by this individual who was looking to make everybody miserable in their company. So I really give a lot of praise to Dave Chappelle for having the discipline and the character and the resolve to continue going on in his set and going on making his jokes and showing that he was not going to let this individual try to silence him, because that's basically what this individual wanted to do when they were assaulting Dave Chappelle. They wanted to silence him, and I believe they possibly wanted to silence him permanently, because that's the only reason why he would bring a weapon to a comedy show, is to go out here and do harm to Dave Chappelle. But I thank God that there were people there to get this guy off of Dave Chappelle. But it really shows me how our nation is in a really bad place, because if a comedian can't make fun of something, then we have a real serious problem with we the people in our nation. It shows that we the people are becoming more and more intolerant. It shows we the people are becoming less respectful of other people, and we the people do not respect the rights of other people, because in a nation with free speech, you need to respect the rights of another individual's right to speak. And when you have people who believe that they are justified in doing harm to someone for making their statements, we have a real serious problem in this country. Now, I haven't seen this type of violence ever since I went in junior high school back in the late 1980s, and back then it was a place where if you said the wrong thing, you could get beaten up. And I haven't seen any type of violence like this since I was in junior high school, and it's disturbing that I'm seeing this type of violence going on right now, and it's grown men and women acting like this, believing they are justified in doing harm to others, so because they said the wrong thing. And that's really, again, troubling, again, when you consider the country that we have, or supposed to have, where people are supposed to have free speech, that people are so tissue paper fragile that they can't handle a difference of opinion, they can't handle different viewpoints, and that just, again, is just so un-American. But this is going to fly over more people's heads, because they're looking at situations like this and thinking, oh, there's something wrong with the comedian. No, if you go to a comedy club and you pay a ticket for a comedy club, you have to understand that you may hear jokes that you're not going to like. And if you go to see a comedian like Dave Chappelle, you have to understand that him doing jokes that are on there is not really about you. When a comedian is doing their set, they are making commentary about things that they've seen in their lives. They're making observations about things that they've seen in their lives, and it's not personal at all. No, when a comedian makes their jokes, they are making social commentary, and if they can't make social commentary, then there's a real serious problem with freedom of speech here in America, and that problem definitely connects to the man crisis because it shows that we are not raising boys to become men and girls to become women who understand the basics about the U.S. Constitution, the basics about freedom of speech, the basics about freedom of expression, or even the basics as related to social conduct. Because if a person is raised well, they understand that, yes, if you hear something you don't like, it does not give you a right to act to do harm to another individual. No, when you hear something you don't like, you have one option. If you go to a place like a comedy club or a comedy show, you can get up out of your seat and leave that venue, and you can just call it a night. That is your option, and that is your freedom to express yourself. And sadly, many people don't understand these kind of freedoms because they want to be able to force their opinions on other people, not understanding you don't have a right to attack someone for saying something you don't like. You don't have a right to attack somebody for saying something you disagree with. No, you don't have a right to go out here and do harm to another person for making a joke you don't like or doing something you don't like. No, you have an option, and that is leaving whatever venue you have gone to and chalking up the price of the ticket as a loss. That is your option as related to these situations because it's just disturbing to see so many people not understanding the easy solution. I mean, I'm seeing people going up on these stages and attacking comedians when if you really wanted to really have an impact, you would just walk out of the show and call it a day. It's not your right to go out here and attack the comedian and ruin the night for everybody else. No, your job is to say, I'm gonna put a period at the end of this and move on and just say, okay, I don't like this guy's jokes. But I look at these people, and again, they're so fragile and tissue paper thin. They would not have been able to survive in the 1980s that I grew up in with comedians like Eddie Murphy, Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay. You wouldn't be able to handle that type of comedy. I mean, I don't even think these people today could even handle the kind of comedy that I write in books like All About Nikki and Spinsterella because they're so really tissue paper fragile that everything upsets them and offends them. And that's a really sad place for many of these people to be because this shows me that you're just living to be miserable because if everything upsets you and offends you, then it's going to be impossible to even be around you because this type of person, again, they really are really toxic. They really are in crisis. And it just shows how this is what happens when we raise 2 to 3 generations of males and females to believe that everybody gets a trophy. Everybody needs to have their feelings pleased. Everybody has to get whatever they want. And whenever they run into a life situation when something isn't what they want, they believe they have a right to go out here and lose it. But that just shows how we have lost our way as a nation, and we're raising these children to become men and women in crisis. And if we don't change the way we raise boys and girls to become men and women, we're going to have an even worse society where there won't be anybody laughing, anybody smiling. Everybody will be miserable in the company of each other. And it'll be a really sad world because a world without comedy is not a fun world to be in. Now, if you want to learn more about the dysfunctional behavior of individuals who believe it's okay to jump up on stage and attack people and why they participate in this dysfunctional behavior, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, All About Nikki, A Fabulous First Season. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air meets Clueless in this absolutely fabulous African-American 1990s teen sitcom. Get all 13 episodes of All About Nikki, The Fabulous First Season in paperback and e-readers today.